Hello, everybody. How are you? How are things in your world, guys? It's time for another Community Spotlight. This is a series of videos we've been doing on different neighborhoods and towns and townships and communities in Los Angeles. This one's going to be about El Monte out there in the San Gabriel Valley, just east of downtown, 10, 12, 13 miles. And it's such a fascinating town, El Monte meaning the mountain. But we'll come back to that. The motto for the official motto for El Monte is, let me see, I lost it. Is welcome to friendly El Monte. Alternatively, they had one for a very long time called the End of the Santa Fe Trail, but they had a contest to get a new one. The winner was welcome to friendly El Monte. The second place winner was El Monte Gateway to Rosemead. That one didn't get quite as many votes. Guys, it's right there between the San Gabriel and Rio Hondo rivers. People named it El Monte, which is kind of fascinating, which it means the mountain in Spanish. But guess what? Guess how many mountains are in El Monte? 0. Guess how many mountain ranges are in El Monte? 0. Now, Southern California does have mountains, small mountains, and they do have ranges, but not in El Monte. El Monte is flat as a pancake, or let's call it rolling. Now, that San Gabriel Valley, that whole area, as we've mentioned many times, was part of the old rancho/mission system. The ranchos were generally land grants from the Kingdom of Spain. And Spain, I mean, they were pretty liberal with they would say, if you went to the mission and said, hey, I would like to work some land. I'd like to own some land, have some land. And this is early on, okay, late 1700s. But it's early on where the place is pretty wide open. And you say, hey, can I get some property? They're like, yeah, here's 10,000 acres. They would literally give you 10,000 acres. Now, you had to either build a house. Usually, they would say, all right, you get this land, but you have to build a house or raise cattle, or both. And, I mean, 10,000 acres, you could have your own Lonesome Dove movie, right? You could have your own cattle drive on your own property. And that was a small place. There was one guy who had a property of 600,000 acres. It stretched from the Pacific Ocean. I think it's pretty far. Can you imagine? Hey, Ted, how's your property going? You plant any flowers? Well, on the north 100,000 acres. I mean, you know what I mean? And plus, in those days, of course, it was all horseback, but that's a lot of ground to cover. Any which way there's no way you could cover that. You could travel a month on your own property. So the mission, of course, was the mission of San Gabriel Archangel, and really there wasn't any place. It was kind of the city center. It was the town. It was the downtown, so to speak. That's where you'd go, because where else are you going to go? I mean, you have your house on your 600,000 acres and your cattle, but what are you going to do? Look at your cattle all day and tell them the same jokes you've been telling them for the last 45 years? You go into the mission, and who knows? The mission was the center of life. So maybe they had, I don't know, once a month they had Las Vegas nights, right? Or they had gambling. Maybe your priest ran the roulette wheel or was a blackjack dealer. I mean, or maybe they had like more sporting activities, like in the basement. Maybe they had a bowling alley or shuffleboards down there. And they had league night. Maybe they had bowling league night. They had vineyards, right? So you pull a couple of bottles out of the cellar and you pop them, and all right. Now they play beer of frame these days. Maybe they were playing glass of frame. You've never seen your priest have as much fun as a glass of wine per frame on bowling night at the Mission. Father, it's your turn. No, Father, no. Turn around. The pins are the other way. It's frame 8, and the Father's had half a liter. So, that was the story with El Monte. Now, the thing what's interesting about El Monte is that they started a trend of cities that were named something after something that wasn't there. So they were called the Mountain. There was absolutely no mountain there. Los Angeles was named after the Angels, Los Angeles, the Angels, which maybe when the Spaniards originally put in those missions up and down the coast of California, maybe there were angels in Los Angeles, but they have long since been evicted by the devils. There are no angels left. There are no angels left in Los Angeles. It's all devils. And this trend continued on various communities around the United States. Let's name the city after something that has nothing to do with our city at all. So El Monte, after the rancho system kind of went down because really it wasn't the best use of the land. I mean, well, just as the country progressed and the Industrial Revolution started to take effect and people started heading west, real estate, it became more of a bedroom community, right? So it kind of went from farming, like citrus, walnuts, avocados out there, to cattle ranching, to oil exploration, to a bedroom community. In fact, there's still people in El Monte that are chipping away at their backyards to dig a hole deep enough to try to strike it rich. Because there have been several, maybe 24 houses in El Monte that by having their kids dig in the backyard, they generally have the kids do it because, a lot of times these are working families where both parents work. And so to keep the kids occupied in the summer when they didn't have school, they'd say, okay, kids, we want you to dig in the backyard because we're trying to strike oil. And they'd give them a kitchen spoon, they'd give them a kitchen knife. Maybe they would give them one of those grinders with the crank, the mixer, a hand mixer. And they'd say, okay, you could use this to help drill, like a hand drill. Or if it was more of an affluent family, sometimes they would give them one of those electric drills that has a battery, a handheld drill with a battery. And they'd just say, look, go do your best, but failure is not an option, they'd say. No pressure. And they'd come home and the kids would have a big pile of dirt next to some hole they dug in the ground. But sure enough, like up to 24 families over the last couple decades have struck oil in their backyard. Now, what's interesting is a lot of these kids are like 3-4 years old, digging in the backyard. And one time, a house in El Monte hit a gusher. Basically, a 4-year-old was digging in the backyard. He hit an active oil well that started shooting oil into the air 100, 200 feet in the air. Well, the kid is a 4-year-old. It doesn't take much to lift him up. The oil shot him into the air. He was bouncing in the air on the top of an oil gusher that he dug with a plastic spoon from his last Christmas toy set. These people that are driving down the freeway, they're like, is that a little toddler bouncing on the top of a active oil gusher? And the answer was yes. So those people had to talk to child services, but most people will, in that case, when they hit oil, if they have any problem, they'll just pay off any government officials they have to, and everything gets handled. And plus, the kid was loving it. How much fun would that be, bouncing around at the top of the oil, shooting in the air? You're up there just laughing and flailing around. Plus, the view. You can see there's no mountain in El Monte to give you views. But if you're flying and bouncing on top of an active oil gusher 100, 200, 500 feet in the air, you can see pretty far. You could probably see Catalina Island. I don't know. So that is, guys, just a basic thumbnail sketch of El Monte. We're going to be doing so many more videos on this great town, this great community. So come on back. It's going to be fun.